My roommate stole my cookies, but they were actually biscuits to make my horse poop. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. This just happened today. It took a couple hours of panicking before it actually started to be funny, though my roommate may still disagree. To set the scene, I'm an equine vet student, living with my roommate, a forensic biology master's student. I grew up around horses, so I have a lot of friends in the equine world, and my program focus means that I now get to offer a unique perspective in offering some help where I can, for non-life-threatening issues, of course. And I always recommend speaking to an actual vet as well, since I can only offer so much. Anyways, a friend of mine who lives nearby owns a senior horse who has recently developed bouts of bowel issues, as elderly individuals tend to do. She spoke to her vet about wanting to prevent colic, which is essentially where the horse gets a stomachache and can't poop and then dies. So her vet prescribed an oral laxative for her horse to help prevent the constipation and subsequent colic. The problem is that her horse is a pretty big boy and is not a fan of taking oral medication, and even in his old age can be a formidable opponent to try and tangle with. My friend had approached me for advice, and I offered to essentially hide the medication in homemade horse treats, since it was prescribed in powdered form. Lots of horses are extremely sensitive to anything that tastes even remotely like medication, so hiding the meds in a sweet and palatable treat would be a surefire way to get them into his system when they were needed. Since I couldn't risk essentially ruining the meds by actually baking them, I settled on making no-bake apple cinnamon clusters. At this point in the story, it's important to mention a few things regarding my roommate. Firstly, he's my ex-fiancé. We're still on good terms. We're just better as friends. So he knows I love to bake, and we typically have an equal use policy when it comes to food and supplies and things, just because we never got out of the habit. Secondly, he has his own room now that we're not together anymore. And since his schedule mostly involves him studying in his room or working during the morning, and then being gone for the better part of the afternoon for his classes and lab work, he typically isn't in the apartment during the time I was doing this, and I wouldn't even have known he was home. So I finished making about 50 of the Poop Power horse treats and left them on a tray in the fridge to firm up. Like I said previously, I had no reason to suspect my roommate wouldn't be out of the house, so I left to quickly go take care of some things back on campus, figuring I'd be back and have already given my friend the treats well before my roommate got done with his afternoon classes. It was about an hour later when I got a text from him.
Hey, hope you don't mind, but I had a few of the cookies you left in the fridge, and I just wanted to let you know they were super good. I miss your cooking.
Cookies?
Yeah, the cinnamon ones.
Y'all, I panicked. I called him and asked him how many he ate. Apparently it was about 3, and essentially had to tell him he just ate cookies containing what's, in short, prescription horse laxatives. I told him that he needed to call poison control right now. Understandably, he freaked out, got ticked, and asked why they were even in the fridge to begin with. Then hung up and called poison control. I don't even want to imagine how the conversation went, but based on the type and the amount of laxative I put in the batch and how many cookies were made from it, the concentration was low enough that he won't have any serious side effects, aside from the cookie's intended purpose. Obviously, I feel terrible because I can't even be in the apartment right now, it's so unbelievably bad. But on the bright side, he'll be fine in a few hours. Healthy as a horse, you could say. Okay, this is just kind of an unfortunate situation. I guess you could say that yes, our original poster should have let them know that that was the situation regarding those treats in the fridge. But at the same time, like you said, you had no reason to believe he would be home and they were going to be out of the apartment in less than an hour. I can understand why you didn't really think it would be an issue, but hey, things happen. Maybe roommate just shouldn't have taken stuff without asking first. That could have been another way to avoid this situation. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is really anyone's fault and just kind of going to be a funny story to look back on now. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. My entitled family wanted me to use my Make-A-Wish on them. This story occurred when I was 8 years old. I was born with brain damage. Because of this, I have a lot of health problems. When I was 8, my health declined quickly, and the doctor didn't think I would live to the end of the year. Make-A-Wish got in contact with my mom and she told me. The rest of my dad's side of the family found out quickly and started to get excited about going to Disney. I chose to meet the actor of Draco from Harry Potter. I told my family I didn't want to go to Disney because there was nothing for me to do. I can't ride roller coasters and I don't like Disney princesses or characters. But they didn't care. I couldn't go a day without hearing,
"Your sisters always wanted to go to Disney World and you're robbing them of it."
or
"You're our sister, you're supposed to love us."
only one of my sisters was sad I was dying. This one was my personal favorite though.
"You're gonna die anyway, what does it matter? Let your sister have this. You're gonna be on your deathbed wondering why everyone hates you."
It became too much. Watching my mother cry holding me and feeling my other family hate me. So I told my mom that the wish should go to someone that can use it for what they want, not their family. My family made themselves the victims, and for a couple years after this they would tell me that they hate me and how they wish I'd die. But then when I started to become successful, they all start to love me, and I ignored them. I just focused on moving out and cutting off contact with them except for the family that I know love me. This one's a bit of a weird one, and I'm not gonna lie. Sounds a little bit made up, but I'm not gonna write off the story. We're gonna assume that everything here is true. For one, if you were supposed to die within the year, what happened? We missed that part of the story. I assume you got better, which is great, but you kinda left that out. Regardless, the family trying to jump in on taking advantage of a dying person's last wish is probably one of the scummiest things you can do. This is a young child who's suffering and wasn't supposed to make it to the end of the year. This wish is for them to do something amazing and unique before they go, not for the family to get a trip to Disney World. If you guys want to go to Disney World so bad, then go ahead. Plan the trip and pay for it. But don't be looking to cash in on your 8-year-old dying family member's last wish. Entitled mother demands I sell her daughter my longboard or else she's gonna get me expelled from my university. When I was in university, I bought myself a longboard to get around campus. A lot of the students were doing it and I thought it would be easy. Well, after a few falls, I changed my mind and switched to a bike. I figured that if I wasn't going to be using it, I might as well sell it to someone who would. I posted it on Facebook Marketplace at a good price and had a few people interested right away. The first person to contact me was happy to meet my price and available to meet right away. I updated the listing to pending offer and drove out to meet the buyer. She liked the board and purchased it with no bargaining. When I got home, I had a message from a high school girl asking if it was still available. Sorry, no, someone just bought it. No, you have to get it back. I love this longboard. It's perfect for me. Sorry, it's sold. I'm no longer the owner. I don't have it. Ask for it back. Tell the buyer you changed your mind. Offer $20 for their trouble and I'll up the price. I wanted to end the argument, so I said I'd follow up with the new owner and ask them if they'd be interested in selling it to the high schooler for a little bit more money. I contacted the buyer to let her know that someone was inquiring about the longboard and willing to pay a little more. I asked her if she'd like the contact details in case she wanted to make an easy $20. The new owner thought about it and said no. She wasn't interested. Fair enough. So I contacted the high school girl to let her know that I checked with the new owner and they weren't interested in selling. This is your fault. I feel like you've just kicked me in the gut. You're a terrible person. I wasn't in the mood for further chatting and blocked her email. Fast forward 1 week and I had an email from the high school girl's mother.
"My daughter tells me that you promised to sell her a longboard but changed your mind and sold it to someone else. That's unacceptable."
No, your daughter asked me if I could sell her the longboard after I had already sold it to someone else. The posting noted that it was pending pickup when your daughter reached out to me. Sorry for the confusion.
"No, you will get my daughter that longboard. You're gonna compensate her for the pain and suffering you've caused too. And you'll be giving the longboard to my daughter for free."
Look, lady, I don't own the longboard anymore. Someone else bought it.
"Then go get it. I know the dean of your university. If you don't deliver the longboard to me by the end of the day, I'll get you expelled. Do you really want to lose your chance at having a good job over a longboard? You'll do the right thing, or else."
I stopped responding because that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't block the email though, and the next evening I had another treat.
"I went to complain to the dean, and your time at the university is limited. While I was there, my daughter saw someone riding her longboard today. How dare you sell it? You'll be sending us $500 for a brand new one." After all, you won't be needing your money for tuition next semester. My address is here. You better deliver that money or else. What's your phone number? Text me at this number when you're coming.
Well, that night I went for a little ride and drove by their home. I took a photo of the 2015 BMW 228i convertible in their driveway and posted it on Craigslist for $500. I asked that interested buyers text entitled mother's number and promptly blocked her email. My friend texted a few days ago to ask about the car. Apparently, entitled mother is responding to everyone thinking that it's me and demanding that they come with the $500 and a new longboard for her little angel, but that she's not selling the car. The dean never called me to his office. I graduated without issue. The classic entitled parent move. I'm gonna call whoever's responsible for your job or schooling and make sure you get in trouble. She probably didn't even know the dean at all, and maybe never even made the phone call. She was just making empty threats hoping you'd cave and give her what she wants. Some people just don't understand how the world works. You've already sold it to someone else. You had already sold it when the daughter messaged you to begin with. You even went the extra mile and tried to follow up with the new owner and see if they were willing to sell it. But that's as far as you can go. You can't force them to give it back to you so you can sell it to someone else. They're just gonna have to deal with the fact that the world doesn't revolve around them. My parents are insisting that my brother give them a grandchild, and it better be male. My brother and my sister-in-law have been married for 6 years. I love them both dearly. They adopted a little girl about a year ago. My parents were happy about this too, at first. They got really angry when my brother and sister-in-law announced recently that their daughter would be their only child, and they don't want biological kids. My mom and dad lost their minds. They told my brother he had to get my sister-in-law pregnant. He was the family's male heir, and he would have to have a biological son to carry forward the family name. This makes no sense to me, nor my brother and sister-in-law. It's not as if we're a family of European royalty. Who gives a crap about the family name in this day and age? Well, my parents do apparently. They've been berating my brother and guilt-tripping my sister-in-law, making her feel like she's taking something away from our family. On one occasion, they actually suggested that my brother leave my sister-in-law if she didn't want to get pregnant and have a son with another woman. What's even worse is that they've stopped paying attention to my niece. Earlier, they would call and talk to her almost every day, but ever since they were told about my brother and sister-in-law's decision, they've stopped calling. This really ticks me off and deeply saddened my brother and sister-in-law. The child is 3 years old and doesn't deserve this kind of treatment. Last month, my brother told me that mom and dad had called him and they talked about something unrelated. When he asked if they wanted to talk to their granddaughter, they said they'd talk to their real grandchild when my brother came to his senses and decided to give them one. I was angrier than I've been in a long time. I called my parents and unloaded on them. I told them how selfish and cruel they were being, and how dare they take their anger out on my niece, along with a lot of other things I can't even remember. My mom started crying, as she's not used to being yelled at. I used some very harsh words, but I just can't believe that they're so cruel towards an innocent child. After that, my parents have tried to rally our relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins, and our grandparents, to gang up on my brother and sister-in-law to pressure them to have a biological child. Male, obviously. However, their plan has failed miserably. Most of the relatives told them they were being crazy. Some of the cousins repeated some of the things that I had said to them. Uncles and aunts told them that even if they did want a biological grandson, there was no excuse for the way they were treating my niece. Even my grandparents, who are quite old-fashioned, admonished them for their behavior towards my niece. My brother has banned them from his home. I've banned them from mine. This ban will stay in place until they start treating my niece like their granddaughter, i.e., the way she deserves to be treated. I feel like my grandparents shunning my niece hurts even more because when she first became a part of the family, they appeared to love her. They would speak to her on the phone, play with her when they visited, but all of that stopped when they found out my brother and sister-in-law won't be having any biological kids. They just rejected a little girl for no fault of her own. Yeah, it sounds like the parents are hearing it from all directions as to why they're wrong here. You can want a biological grandkid all you want, and I understand that in some cultures this is an important thing for them. But rejecting this little girl that you were giving all this love to before is just unnecessary cruelty. That kind of attitude isn't gonna be winning you any popularity contests. Like I said, everybody seems to be letting them know that they're out of line. so hopefully they'll change their attitude and come around a little bit. There's no reason for this little girl to lose her grandparents over something like this. My entire family dropped out of my wedding when they found out my wife was pregnant. Now, I refuse to let them meet my daughter. I come from a conservative Christian family. All my family members were and are involved in the church and have church-based jobs. When they met my wife, they loved her and embraced her as their own. We dated for 2 years and discovered she was pregnant after we got engaged. Invitations were already given at the time, and we decided to still have the wedding on the date when my wife was 5 months in. My family was furious when they found out my wife was pregnant. They asked if we even still considered having the wedding. I said, why not? But they were very upset, especially mom and dad, who said they've always been known for their decency and good Christian values, and weren't willing to let this stain their reputation. As in, my wife and I getting married while pregnant. They officially dropped out and refused to negotiate, saying it was done and I have only myself to blame for this outcome, and should move the wedding out of town. I was hurt. I tried to change their minds and checked with other members, but my brother said he had no intentions to look like a joke in front of his fellow church members, and also dropped out. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she may not be able to make it. She's 100% healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and stopped his wife and kids from attending, and my uncle just cussed me out, tore up the invitation and kicked me out. I feel terrible with no family members of my own to support me and share my joy at my wedding. I even broke down crying after the ceremony. I haven't spoke to them for months, and then got busy with my 4-week-old daughter. My cousin reached out to hand me gifts and well wishes for the birth of my daughter sent from my family. I returned everything. He sat with me on behalf of the family, saying I shouldn't have returned the gifts that were from my family who want to see and hopefully be involved in my daughter's life. He said my mom's longing to meet her grandbaby, and everyone else is wanting to visit soon to celebrate my daughter's life. I asked him this question. I said, wasn't my daughter the reason the entire lot of them abandoned my wedding? He just stared grudgingly as I went on about how they treated my daughter as something to be ashamed of and hide. My daughter at some point will ask about the wedding, and I have no intentions on lying to her. He replied saying he guaranteed I got it all wrong, and no matter what goes down between us, I can never deny that my daughter is their granddaughter or niece or whatever, and they're her family. He asked that I arrange for them to visit, but I refused. He kept pressing the idea, but I shut him down. My wife says I should let them come, but I still refused. Am I the jerk? I don't blame our original poster for having a bad taste in their mouth regarding their family after being treated this way. It doesn't sound like the issue was the baby itself, but the fact that she was going to be pregnant during the wedding. That's a really weird thing to be so upset about. The whole family refusing to come shows that they weren't willing to support you guys in this. Your cousin's trying to argue the point that they're family, and that that's not going to change. Then why did it change during your wedding? Why wasn't that support there at that moment? You were with someone you loved and you were already planning on getting married and happened to get pregnant. It could have been a lot worse. Your family's being incredibly short-sighted on this whole thing, in that they didn't see that this was going to be the repercussion. Of course you're going to have ill feelings about them and your daughter. That's where they've chosen to set the bar. I don't want to say cut them out completely, but their behavior has been incredibly toxic. I don't know what they're like on a day-to-day basis. Maybe otherwise they're very supportive. I do hope that maybe you guys can come to some kind of reconciliation, because at the end of the day, yes, they are her grandparents. At some point, she's gonna want to get to know them. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.